So you're the founder of a startup and you're thinking about taking investment, but what does investment actually mean?
Well, it means that you're raising money in exchange for giving away some shares in your company. So the investor is going to become a shareholder and an owner of your company. And during your lifespan of a company, you might go through a number of different fundraising rounds. So early on, that might mean that you're raising money from family and friends, and then later on you might have what's known as a seed round. So this is when you're getting the first outside investment coming into your company, so typically from a high net worth individual known as an angel, and they can invest, that investment amount can range between sort of tens of thousands of pounds to £1 million. And then later on you'll have what's known as a Series A or B or C round, and that's when you're getting some institutional investment coming in, so from a VC, and they're going to invest sort of north of £1 million, and A's, B's and C's just represents the money getting higher and higher and higher.
So if you're a founder of a startup, you should expect to go through a number of different investment rounds, and effectively in each of those you're giving away some of your company in exchange for taking some money. So that's the equity side of it. If you're not giving shares away immediately, you can also go through slightly different funding rounds, which one of which is called an advanced subscription agreement. And under an advanced subscription agreement, what happens is effectively you receive money in advance and then grant equity later. And that conversion of funds into equity might take place at a particular date that you've agreed in advance, or it might take place at the next funding round. And generally, that money converts into equity at a slight discount to your next funding round. So you're rewarding the individuals who backed you early on with a slight discount as a sort of thank you. The great thing about an ASA is that they're SEIS and EIS compliant, which are the tax reliefs that UK-based investors are very, very keen to see. And we'll come on to talk about those at a later date.
Yeah, but then also there's another route which is known as a convertible loan note. And a convertible loan note works similar to an ASA in that you're getting the financing earlier, and it might convert into equity at a later date, on a date that you've agreed, or the next funding round. But unlike an ASA, it's a loan. So you could be charged interest on that loan, or you might have to repay it at a later date. And because of that, it doesn't have those same tax advantages. So it doesn't have the EIS or SEIS tax advantages. So it's not necessarily as appealing to some UK investors, but that is another route that we do see.
Yeah, and the thing about a convertible loan note is that you might have to repay it, or you could repay it. And if you did repay it, then you're not giving away equity. So that gives you as a company potentially an opportunity to not give away equity in your company. The other thing that you might come across is what's called a SAFE, which is simply a US type agreement. And what happens with that one is that you take money in advance, but there isn't a particular date on which it converts. There's no maturity date in it. But it's similar to an ASA, but US focused. So you should probably come across those a little bit less as a UK founder, but it might be something that you encounter if you're talking to US investors.
Yes. And there's also other types of funding. So there's what's known as bootstrapping, which is where you're growing your business through your own funds or money that the company makes.
So it's like a jargon, but it effectively means you're self-funding.
Yeah, exactly. So early on, you're always going to be bootstrapping. You also might have a grant, so that might be a government grant or from another institution, so things like Innovate UK.
Yeah.
You might have what's known as crowdfunding. So there's a number of different crowdfunding platforms out there, and crowdfunding just means you're raising small amounts of money, but from a number of different individuals. So with crowdfunding, what you want to look at is making sure that that investment is being made through what's known as a nominee company. So on your cap table, you're just going to have one company there as the investor rather than the hundreds of people who may have invested through the crowdfunding website.
And that's important because what will happen is that you then have to only go to one company for consent or to do, to get shareholder approval to something rather than to hundreds of individual investors.
Yeah. And there's also accelerators and incubators. So those are institutions who will help an early stage business in return for some equity in the company. And the ways that they might help is maybe giving you some co-working space or mentoring or access to professionals. And then there's also more traditional ways of raising money. So, for example, a loan through a bank.
Yeah. So bear in mind that accelerators and incubators, just to pick up on that, will mean that you are giving away equity potentially with some of them. So do watch out for that. And then next time we're going to be looking at other things to think about when raising investment.